What's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring another set of action movie reviews, and this time we're going to be talking about a set of Chuck Norris films, which includes A Force of One, Forced Vengeance, and the first Missing in Action film.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here, meeting my icon, Catherine Isabel.
Hey, I'm Sylvia Saska.
And I'm Jen Saska.
And we're the Saska Sisters. Get a part of this. Subscribe to the little butt down there. Look.
And first off, we're going to be talking about A Force of One, which came out in 1979, and after his role facing off against Bruce Lee, among some others, and his first starring role in Breaker Breaker, as well as Good Guys Wear Black, A Force of One was one of Chuck Norris's earliest sled films. And it's one I've been, of course, meaning to see for a while for obvious reasons. I mean, I have the DVD right here, if you guys just want to see that real quick. Pretty nice DVD I found too, by the way. I wouldn't mind having Blu-rays of all of these, but... so, A Force of One. Basically, there's, I could just read the IMDb thing, but it's really not that hard to explain, and that's okay. Basically, there are a lot of cop killings going around, almost, kind of serial killer-like in manner. But one thing that's distinct about them is that, they're done without, the other guys apparently even having a chance against them, or getting a hit in on them or something like that. They're done very decisively in a way that's way too skilled for the current officers that are working in that department and everything. They're trained to fight and stuff like that, but they go to Chuck Norris's character, who is named Matt Logan, because they're being killed by likely a martial artist, and he's a professional kickboxer. In the meantime, Chuck Norris is trying to get ready for his own big fight. He's also mentoring a younger guy that he's known since he was a kid, after he pulled him out of a bad family and everything, named Charlie, played by Eric Luneville, who is a good presence in the film. He's not on screen too much though. That's basically it. Then you have Chuck Norris, training for his own fight, and then, kind of methodically, people are getting picked off here and there. And you find out it's sort of like a tie-in conspiracy to some of the people Chuck Norris is having to go up against anyway, in official capacity. Now it's turned into this, bigger thing, of course. So, I liked A Force of One quite a bit. I mean, I remember I've heard for quite some time that A Force of One, I don't know, there seemed to be this perception about it, like it's, silly to watch or something like that, or it's, just kind of, so bad it's good type of watch, just because it's such an early Chuck Norris film or something. I don't really think it should be looked down upon like that. I mean, yeah, it's an earlier martial arts film, so there's gonna be some inherent, cheesiness, whether intentional or not for the time, but I really don't think it's even that prevalent in terms of those regards either. I think it's legitimately a pretty solid film. I think it's definitely a martial arts classic. And probably within my top 5 Norris films that I've watched so far since taking a better look at his work. This one is really a toss-up with Forced Vengeance to me, which we'll talk more about in a couple minutes when we talk about that movie. But I like this one quite a bit. It has a decent gloomy vibe to it at times. I particularly liked Jennifer O'Neill as Mandy Rust, who is sort of our lead detective on the case, and of course her and Matt Logan, Chuck Norris's character, they develop sort of feelings for each other. But I thought she gave actually a pretty good performance. It went beyond what you'd expect for this movie. I think she's very attractive. In a realistic way, though. They don't overly sexualize her or anything like that. And I liked her dynamic with Chuck Norris. I'll talk more about Chuck Norris's acting in Forced Vengeance, but I think he actually did fine here too. Well, I can just say this now. A lot of people don't look at Chuck Norris for his acting ability, of course, and there's all those memes about the many expressions of Chuck Norris and everything. But for me, as big of a martial arts and action genre fan as I am, I think Chuck Norris is one of the most natural ones I've ever seen. I mean, sure, he has a couple more dullish performances here and there, but even in these earlier movies, I think he has like a natural charm to him, and he feels believable with the characters he's playing. He doesn't feel like he's forced, pun intended, or anything, to act the way he does. He feels natural. I can say that much. And of course, the choreography for both this and Forced Vengeance is, again, dated. It's not like a Boyka film. It's not as elaborate as, some of our more modern day action movies can be sometimes. It's a little bit slower. Some people would say clunky, but I don't think it came across clunky either. More simplistic, sure. But I still enjoyed the fight scenes in this movie, and Chuck definitely nails that as well, obviously. And I liked the pacing of it. I do think this one had a more concise story than Forced Vengeance. I feel like there's a little bit more to it. It kind of, again, had that, little slight thriller, investigation, crime edge, It depends what you're in the mood for, though. So I actually quite like Forced Vengeance. Or, excuse me, A Force of One. And because of that, and just the way the movie is made, and Jennifer O'Neill, maybe it is overall a better movie than Forced Vengeance. But speaking of Forced Vengeance, which we'll talk about next, I actually have this on a triple feature DVD set with a couple other Chuck Norris movies, which I don't think quite fits with as well. But I'd really love to get this on its own DVD. I liked it that much. Like I said, I debate between this one and An Army of One. Forced Vengeance, I'll read off IMDb for this one if you want. A casino security guard is forced into violence when the Hong Kong mob threatens his friends. There's kind of some corrupt activities going on between the owner of the casino that he is sort of friends with, and then eventually people like, here's what's put in harm's way, so he's having to go on this, goose chase of getting to who he has to get to. Again, probably even more simplistic plot than Force of One was. But I gotta say, I really enjoyed Forced Vengeance as well. There really is not much to complain about in my eyes. I mean, by the way, Force of One choreography, I think, was actually done by Chuck Norris himself and his brother Aaron. I think that was the case for this one. I'm not sure if that was the case for Forced Vengeance as well. I should have made sure of that before this review, but nonetheless, you have that opening part with the street lights in the background, as you see. Pretty smooth, again, choreography for the time for this early Chuck Norris movie. And then you see the kind of full fight scene and how it's tied into the proceedings as the movie goes along later into it. So a more simplistic plot for sure. And I don't think the Forced Vengeance had quite as strong of a cast. There's no Jennifer O'Neill or anything like that. But there ends up being Mary Louise Weller doesn't do too bad of a job. Neither does Camilla Griggs, excuse me. There's also a buddy of his on this I didn't mind either. But I did like how Chuck Norris's character, Josh Randall, his motivation actually gets propelled about midway, 3/4 through the movie. And I thought that actually worked kind of well. And Chuck Norris, again, he feels natural. He has a certain conviction to him in this movie, in his performance that I liked, and thus the drive to see Chuck get to these guys are increased. I think maybe beyond what they were. Well, I don't know, maybe not beyond what they were in A Force of One, but it gives them an extra motivation that I enjoyed. There's a little bit of emotion with it, so I like that. And I would say there are definitely more hand-to-hand fight scenes than there were in A Force of One. Although I do think the final fight he has with the main bad guy is a bit clunkier than it had to be. But there's also this fight he has with this larger gentleman that is more kind of directly hands-on responsible for what's happened. And that one I really, really like. So there's even a little bit of blood involved with it. Quite good. And it's not just Chuck Norris using his martial arts the whole time either. He tries to be resourceful when he has to. I mean, I have Chuck Norris swinging a fire extinguisher in my intro now, so and that's from Force Vengeance. So although I do think A Force of One is maybe a better movie, all elements together, I do think Force Vengeance maybe has a little bit more of a fun factor for me, if I want to say it that way. I'm not sure. But either way, I really enjoy both of them. I could just flip a coin and decide on one, and it could be different the next day. But I'd rate both of them probably around like an 85%, maybe 87. If I'm really, really in the mood for it. So yeah. And then the last one I'm going to be talking about is the first Missing in Action film, which came out in 1984. I think it was Chuck Norris's first film with that Canon Films production. Which was behind a lot of B action movies for a couple decades or so. And Missing in Action was kind of like it was kind of propelling off of the Rambo thing. I mean, the sequels weren't quite out yet, which kind of illustrated Rambo's influence for that era of action a little bit more so. But there's definitely still popularity stemming from the premise that First Blood introduced. So I think it was kind of coming off of that a little bit. And of course, war films are always, prevalent, always popular. But basically, the plot is very similar to what a Rambo movie would be, although again, came out before the sequels. Basically, Chuck Norris, his character, James Braddock, he was a prisoner of war at one point, and he's being pulled into a trial, to try and gain evidence and put away. I think it's some of the Vietnamese leaders or something like that. And thus he has suspicions that there's more, camps out there where where prisoners of war, POWs, are still being held, so thus you have Chuck Norris eventually going back to try and rescue them. You also have an old veteran buddy of his, Emmett Walsh, at his side, who is also in Red Scorpion, one of the best Dolph Lundgren movies. Check that one out. Lenore Kasdorf wasn't bad as Anne Fitzgerald either. I kind of liked her. But yeah, overall, so the setup is a little bit different, a little bit more kind of played out than what a Rambo movie would do, because Rambo kind of puts you into it pretty quickly, even the sequels. But this one was alright. It was a little disappointing for me. I mean, I watched it with Xfinity on demand. I remember seeing a little bit of one of the movies years ago, but of course, going through all of Chuck Norris's work, I had to check them out. I'm trying to watch them in some semblance of order too. It was alright. I mean, it wasn't badly done. I like the look of the environments. You have Chuck Norris's character. He still has some PTSD, and he has some kind of flashbacks to that, in the beginning and kind of in the middle part of the movie, which I liked. A little bit of, more character focus to that, I guess. But it takes a while for him to get to what you see on the poster there, and even then, it's not a whole lot. But there are some good shots of Chuck Norris with the machine gun, I'll say that. But you have Chuck Norris in this type of setting, and I just feel like this movie didn't quite reach its potential with that. I feel like there could have been more done with it. Not that it necessarily had to go like full Rambo 2 or 3 or something like that, but the action scenes and the shootouts and everything like that, they felt kind of simplistic, a little bit too basic in my opinion. Like there's no overly memorable scene like that for me, and that's kind of moment, Again, not poorly done or anything like that, but I feel like it should have stuck out more than it did for me. I wasn't overly engaged with it. I mean, I feel like the trial thing and him staying at the hotel while that was going on was a bit dragged out too. It's alright, you know, some stealth and, you know, suspense involved with those scenes as well, but it was okay. And then there's the main, I guess, adversary here was James Holland at the time as a general that they were trying to put away. He's not in it too much though. There's this other actor I can't really see the name of right now for some reason. I don't know if it was Ernie Ortega or something. But you know, Braddock has some more of a grudge against him because apparently he was one of the guys that actually tortured him when he was being held there, and he's seen him kill a lot of his other guys and stuff like that. So that part was alright. But overall, I wasn't overly crazy about missing in action. I'd probably give it like a 75, 77% or something like that. Again, not badly done, but I just didn't necessarily enjoy it a whole lot, so I can't really put it up too much higher than that. Not bad, but I don't think one I'll really revisit anytime soon. Maybe the sequels will be different. I know the second one is actually a prequel, but we'll see. I will watch those eventually, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, let me know what your guys' favorite was of these. Do you like the earlier Chuck Norris stuff, or do you like it when it got more into the late 80s, 90s sort of thing? So yeah, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time.